So in today's video I want to talk about winter planting. Now a lot of people don't bother planting in winter, they don't bother growing over winter either, but today I'm not talking about growing over winter, I'm talking about things that I'm actually planting in winter. And so I wanted to show you some of the winter plantings that I did back in kind of December time, and then I wanted to show you some of the beds that I'm clearing now and getting on and getting replanted. And the reason I like to do this is, well, there's a few reasons. The first is that I want to grow as much food as possible in winter and over spring, especially into the hunger gap. And planting in winter is a great time to make sure you get a really nice crop in the hunger gap period, sort of April, May, June sort of period, when otherwise you're a bit short of variety of food to eat. Second thing is, I like to have living roots in the ground all the time. And that's just partly aesthetics, that I just don't like to see bare soil, but it's partly because plants, when they're photosynthesizing, are also releasing simple sugars basically into the soil through the roots. So they don't just take nutrients up out of the roots, they also release nutrients into the roots. Those nutrients feed the soil microbiota, and then the soil organisms feed on the soil microbiota, and then those all decay over time and release nutrients into the soil. So it's a nice process to keep active, and it's a little bit more complicated than that. You could get a 3-volume set of books to describe what I just described in that one sentence. So obviously the first thing you've got to do is you've got to grow stuff to plant, and sometimes the best way to do that is to start it sort of back in September, October, keep it in something like a unheated greenhouse or a polytunnel or a cold frame until about now, and then plant it out. And then you've got to, sometimes the best thing is to sow it sort of in December or early January, ready for planting out now as well. And if you're doing the sowing side of it, it's a heck of a lot better to do it if you've got grow lights. There really isn't enough light to get healthy plants at this time of year, sown in December and January. But if you've got grow lights, it's perfectly, it's easy basically, because everything grows as if you're growing in spring. So when it comes to planting out, I think there's not many things to consider really, other than you've got to plant out really at this time of year under some sort of cover. Fleece I don't think does it, unless we're really lucky and have a kind of mild February. But most of the time I think it's better to do it under plastic. And the benefit of plastic is that if you have a really hard frost, I'm talking like -6, -7, -8, down to sort of -11, which is I think the worst we've ever had here, you can just put another additional layer of fleece on, and that will save the day for young seedlings. So the other thing is hardening off. Well, I don't really bother with hardening off because, again, I'm growing everything under cover and everything's already hardy. So that's kind of enough, as I say, with that. Keep fleece in your back pocket just in case you need it. But I've just looked at the long range weather forecast. There's no frost predicted for the next 10 days or so. So I think everything will just be naturally hardened off anyway in that period of time. And as I say, then I'll just keep an eye out. I'm not bothered about, frosts of like -1, -2, -3, something like that. Nothing needs protecting if it's frost hardy at that sort of temperature. Once it's had its, 10 days to sort of get used to the conditions. But as I say, anything kind of worse than that, a little bit of fleece works wonders. So what sort of things to plant? Well, I think, lettuces are a great thing to plant. Of course, you could overwinter your lettuces, but a lot of people, like me, find that when you overwinter lettuces, you lose quite a lot of them to stem rot because of the damp conditions that we have here. It's not really cold enough. Lettuce doesn't actually mind the cold, but in this kind of half cold, half warm sort of weather that we're having, it's just perfect for the growth of fungal diseases, stem rot and things like that. And so lettuces often just rot off. And if it was colder, it wouldn't be a problem. But for me, I'm losing about 30% of my lettuces in a bad year and maybe 10% in a good year. So it all depends. The other thing is that I find that I have the wrong mix of lettuces. I've got loads of winter lettuces and I've got no, of my favourite spring lettuces. So what I want is to try and get all my spring lettuces in so that come sort of April time, I've got a nice mix of different lettuce varieties. So that's a good one to grow. Early peas, they don't grow a huge amount in winter, but I get them nice and established. They put down good roots. They're really raring to go as soon as we get to March. So February is just really a time for them to get established, put some roots down. As I say, they won't grow huge by that time, which also means you can grow them under cover, which is nice. What else have we got? Onions, so overwintering onions. I've got some late tough balls that I sowed back in December, and they're looking nice now, so they'll give me a nice early crop. And of course loads of salad onions, and since we eat salad onions all year round, we really need to be sowing them all year round. So I got a batch from December that we're ready to plant out in February. And spinach is a great one, and the reason for that again is kind of about continuous supply. So I've got loads of overwintered spinach sown over about a 1 month period, which means it will go to seed over about a 1 month period in spring, but a lot of it will be going to seed in April, so I really need new batches of spinach coming on stream in that sort of time, you know, sort of late March, early April sort of time. And so a batch of spinach that is just germinating now, I'll probably be sowing that, you know, towards the middle of February. It'll be ready towards the end of March, and it'll be harvested all through April, and I'll have new batches that I'll sow in February, etc., just to keep the supply going. And turnips and radishes, they do great over winter, not during, planted out during winter. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to show you around now some of the stuff that we've got growing, and then we'll be done. So here's a little turnip bed, and we're just harvesting this over the last 3 weeks, and this bit here is going to be harvested next week, and then all that part of the bed there that's empty there is going to be lettuces, which were sown a couple of weeks ago and be ready for planting out next week. And they're all lovely spring varieties. And here, this was turnips a couple of weeks ago, and now it's green garlic, and this was sown in modules to allow me to plant it at this time of year rather than it take up the bed all the way through winter. And hopefully we should be harvesting that sort of March, very early April, and then our outdoor garlic will be ready then. So here's a little example of a strip of red lettuces that were really nice in autumn, but don't really survive red lettuces through winter. And so that little strip there is also green garlic, and I've got some nice autumn lettuces there as well, and they're still okay over winter, but they're starting to rise, can you see? And I think they'll be going to seed fairly soon, and so I want those out and get those replaced with something else. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to put in there yet, but probably be radishes, I should think. Here's some carrots that are growing over winter for a harvest in early May, and they're looking okay apart from that one. And you can see that for whatever reason all of those carrots that were over this side have all gone. Now that's probably a slug or a snail or something that's eaten those, and so I've only got a handful of carrots left in there. So I'm going to take that container and I'm going to replant it to peas. I've got 5 other containers of carrots, so I'm not going to go short. Some lovely peas here. So I've got a nice bed of lettuce here that was sown 9th of November, planted out in early December. And what I like to do is I'll just take this back row here and I'll interplant into all these gaps some peas, and I'll leave the lettuces in. I was going to take them out, but I think I can manage to squeeze the peas in between them, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, pretty pleased about that. And I just keep this cover on until April, and then the lettuces don't mind being outside, and the peas will love it. So here's another bed that was carrots, autumn carrots, and so as soon as they finished, I put calabrese in there, some early beetroot in there, and some cauliflowers, and I'll probably interplant turnips into those cauliflowers. So here's 2 little beds of spinach, and I've got 6 beds of spinach, so I don't need all of those in March time. So towards the end of February I shall be replanting this bed with all of the Asian greens, so pak choi and tatsoi and, well, loads of different types. I think I've got about 10 different types of Asian greens to go in there, and they will run to seed sort of in April, early May, and then in this bed will probably go something like peppers. Is an extremely scrappy bed of tatsoi and pak choi. I'm going to take the last harvest off this in a few days' time, and then this bed in about 2 weeks will get replanted to my favourite spring spinach, which is red kitten, and as I say, that will follow on nicely from my winter spinach, which you've just seen. And finally, these cold frames are all full of carrots, and they'll be harvested in January, February, March and very early April. And then the ones at the end, they'll be replanted with early potatoes, main crop potatoes. And this bed will be, I don't know actually, probably radish and turnips. And this bed, which I've just finished harvesting yesterday, that is actually going to be radish and turnips. And then this bed will all be replanted in April to onions. 2 more quick examples for you. Got this bed, which is field beans, and this will soon be transplanted with loads of early kales and calabrese, which are currently growing away nicely. This bed that was field beans, which is now cauliflowers and calabrese and early Brussels sprouts. And then this bed, which was winter lettuces, which is now lovely crunchy winter density spring lettuces interplanted with salad onions. So I hope you like this quick video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.